Hello and welcome to Microsoft Excel tutorial from IT Army, and this is tutorial number 81, and in this video we are going to talk about data validation. So many times it happens that we have our Excel file that we give to our customers, our clients, or business partners to fill in some details, and once we get them back we do the consolidation and then we do some kind of analytics. So for that analytics to be perfect, it's pretty important that whatever data you are getting, it should be clean and valid. If it is not valid, then the reports will not be valid. So in this case we need to perform some kind of validation. So by default you are familiar with that Excel doesn't perform any kind of validation. In any cell you can enter any kind of data. That could be strings, that could be decimals, integers, dates, times, boolean values, or formula. So now we're going to see how to perform the validation. So for that you just need to first of all select the cell where you want to apply the validation. It could be a single cell or it could be a range of cell where you want to apply some validation. Then you're gonna go on to the data tab, and from there under the data tools group you're gonna find we have data validation button, and when I click on that you're gonna get this dialog box. From this dialog box, the very first tab, that is settings tab, from there you can specify the validation settings. By default you can see that says that accept any value, so that's not what I want. I want to have a whole number, that is integer number. I can select that allow any integer number. So from here, once I selected, you can see that it says that ignore blank. So if the cell is blank, so now validation will not be performed, and if it is not blank, then we have some rules to be defined over here. So by default the rule is saying that it should be between, and then you need to specify the value, the minimum and the maximum value. You can type in, or you can reference some cell where you have defined some minimum and maximums. And then if I click on this drop down, we have a bunch of other rules where I can say that the value should not be between or equal to or greater than or less than. Different rules are available. So I want to say that the value should be minimum between 1 and 10, and then I can click on OK, and now the validation is in place. So now if I try to enter 5, I press enter key, the value got accepted. Now if I enter 20 and I press enter key, it says the value doesn't match the data validation restrictions defined for this cell. So the only options what we are getting over here is retry, cancel, and help. So if I click on retry, you can type in some other value and it accepts the data. Now what we want over here is that whatever message that is appearing should be much more friendly. It should explain that what is wrong and what are the possible values that are acceptable. So in that case we can also use the second tab of data validation. So when I click on over here, you're gonna see over here we have the third tab that says error alert. So from here you can specify the error message, that what went wrong. So you can see over here by default it says show the error message or not. If I remove this, no error message will be shown. If I select that, then I have these options over here: stop, warning, or information. If I click on stop, Excel is not gonna allow in any case invalid value. So I can say invalid number, enter between 1 and 10. So this is the message gonna appear, and then the only options you will have once you enter the invalid data is retry or cancel. But if I select this one to warning, is gonna give you warning that whatever data you have entered is invalid. Are you still wanna go ahead? If you say yes, it will accept that invalid value. And same way we have third one, information, is just gonna give you information that this thing is invalid. So let's go ahead with the stop option and click on OK. Now when I type some invalid data 100 and I press enter key, you are getting a title invalid number, and you are getting a more descriptive message that says enter the number between 1 and 10. And the only options I have is I can retry it, re-enter the value, or I can cancel to go back to the previous value. When I click on over here and I say that give me a warning, click on OK, and now what's gonna happen if I type in N100 over here and I press enter, is gonna give me a warning that the value that you have entered is invalid. Do you want to continue or don't want to continue, or you want to cancel to go back to the original value? So if I click in cancel, it takes me to the original value. The last option is information, is just gonna give you information. So if I type in some invalid value, it's just giving you an informational message that the value you have entered is invalid, should be between 1 and 10. If I click on OK, it accepts that value. So this is how we can have different types of error messages appearing. So Now what other options are there? If you have received this data and if you want to further do the validation, you can click on this and you can say circle invalid data. So what it's going to do is that what within your entire Excel sheet, wherever you have got an invalid data, is going to circle those cells. And if you want to remove these circles, you can click on clear validation circles. It's going to remove that. So this is how you have validation options. It's up to you how strict you want to have the validation in place. The next option that you're going to see over here is input message, where you can see that what is the prompt that a user going to see that when he's entering the data in that cell. So I can say enter number, please enter number between 1 and 10, and I click on OK. So now what's going to happen is that as soon as you select that cell where you have to enter the data, the tooltip is going to appear that prompts you that what type of data you have to actually enter over there. So this is how you can do the validation. And you can also use this prompt even if you don't have to validation. You can use it as a prompt so that the user get an idea that what he has to enter over there. Now talking about decimal, you can perform data validation about decimals. You can say I want to accept only decimals. They should be between 1 and 5. So it would be accepting 1.5. That's acceptable, but this one is not gonna accept 1.5. It's only integers. Here it's accept decimals. Next option over here is for list. As name suggests, you want to provide a kind of a drop down for the user. From that list, users can select. So if I want to provide a validation list, I can say provide a list, and there I can say that I want to provide options like male, comma, female. And now when I click on OK, and now you can see as soon as I go to that cell, we are getting this drop down, and I can select any option from there. You can also use the keyboard shortcut Alt down arrow key to pop up the combo box, and you can select any option from there. So this is how we can do the validation. If you have pretty big list available, you can also mark the selection. So if I say over here, if you have some items over here and you want to select from these items only, you can say data validation. It should be a list, and then you can select that this source is gonna be these cells, and I click on OK. So now you're gonna see those options in the drop down list. So this is how we can perform the validation. So if I enter anything else, it will not be acceptable. Now talking about the date, as you are familiar with, Microsoft Excel dates are internally numbers, so you can perform the validation over here. Data validation, any value, a date, I want to accept the date between, and then you can specify what dates you want to accept. So by default, you know that the minimum date that Excel accepts is from 1900, and the largest date is that can be December 31st, 9999. So this is the biggest number that Microsoft Excel can store. So you can specify that what is the valid value. So this way, if user tries to enter any invalid data, it won't accept that thing. And if you want to use formulas, that also you can say. So example, you can say that should be today or next 10 days. So I can say equals to today, and then equals to today plus 10. So if I press control semicolon, I get today's date, that is acceptable, 24th of October. But if I say after more than 10 days, so let's say we have 11/7, enter, it says that data is invalid. So this is how we can perform the validation for dates. Same is the case with the time also. You know that time is internally a number between 0 and 1. So I can say I want to have data validation at time, and I say that you can enter any time. So I can say it can be anything between 12 a.m. to 11:59 minutes 59 seconds p.m. And now when I click on OK, and you can see that it's not gonna allow any invalid value, it's just gonna allow only numbers. Next validation is about text length. As name suggests, you can put a restriction on how many characters is gonna accept. So I can say data validation, and let's say I want to have text length of exactly 2 characters. So I can say NY for New York, and it accepts that thing. But if I enter something bigger than that, it's not gonna accept. If it is Lesser than that is not gonna accept, should be exactly 2 characters. Then talking about some more advanced custom validation. So if I want to say that the end date should be bigger than start date, so I can say data validation and custom, and then over here I can say that this should be greater than this. So this is one formula, right? So if I enter over here 1st of January and then I enter over here 10th of January, it is okay, right? But if I put over here 10th of January and I enter 1st of January, and then it says that it is invalid. Now let's see, we do the other way around. If I put over here 10th of January and then I enter 20th of January, it got accepted. So we need to put validation over here also, that this value should always be less than this value. So I select the cell and data validation, and I say it should be a custom, that this value should be greater than this value, and I click on OK, and this is how we can perform the validation. So now if I try to enter some bigger value, 15th of January, it's not allowing me, so I can enter only suppose 1st of January till 10th of January. So this is how we can perform the validation, custom validation, and like this you can have a lot of more complex ideas. Now let's say if you want to accept the data that should not be a weekend, right? It should be some weekday, and we say that it should not be Sunday. So anything between Monday to Saturday is acceptable. So I can again do data validation. That will be with custom. And if you remember, we talked about weekday function. Weekday of this cell should not be equal to 1. So weekday of this cell is not equal to 1, where 1 represents Sunday. So I press enter. So if I enter 24th of October, it accepts that. But let's see any Sunday date. So Sunday is 21st of October. So if I modify to 21st, enter, and it is not accepting that thing. So this is how we can do more complex validation using data validation option. Now we don't have any way visual representation for finding out that a cell is having data validation or not. So once you select any cell, we have option for clear all. Using this you can clear the validation for the entire sheet. And if you want to jump to a cell, you don't know which cell is having validation, you can use Control G or F5, go to special, and then from here you can say I want to go to data validation of similar type, whatever is the active cell having validation, or you want to go to all, similar or all. So if I say all and click on OK, you can see it has selected all the cells where I have data validation in place. So that's all about data validation. Hope you like this video. If you have any other questions or comments, please post in the comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.